free NFTs or a certain amount of NFTs to get certain services from them. So there is an incentive for the community to hold those NFTs, trade those NFTs. This generates royalties and revenue for the treasury. And they also thought about having those NFTs reaching a certain amount of SOL. And if this amount of SOL is reached, like the floor price, then they will switch to a monthly subscription model for people who can't afford like to pay 60 to 180 SOL in order to get those 3 NFTs. And this is also a form of revenue. And I want us to think about exactly that. How can we like not copy it, but get something that we at Grape can use in order to generate revenue? And NFTs are a perfect idea, I think.
So we'll be starting.
Okay, but by the time we figure this out, people will work for free. Is that correct? Because this is not something that we can figure out in a proposal tomorrow.
No, like one solution or something that I could say would work is we say, okay, we want to have a rough plan laid out. Like we want to we have a certain amount of things we can give or provide for the community, and like there is a model where we like introduce our own NFTs or whatnot, and we give ourselves like the whole community a month to figure out on how we want to do that. We are enough people and enough brain power to get something fleshed out, and we can say like we give ourselves a month in order to come up with a solid plan, and another month to reach milestone whatnot, and a third month in order to get things really started. And by agreeing to those milestones, we then can say, okay, we have a plan in place and we can pay people for those 3 months in USDC. But if we don't achieve those milestones, we need to reevaluate what we want to do after that. And if we hit those 3 months and don't achieve what we set out, then we obviously can't say, okay, we will do it again. But this would give us a way to like pay people, but at the same time have our full like DAO working on finding a solution for a set problem.
We're going to be starting the DAO call, and we'll circle back to this conversation later on during the DAO call. But in approximately 1 minute, we're going to start with our brief updates. Yeah. All right, it's 10:05. We're now going to be starting our DAO call. Dim, do you want to get started on the new prospects and removals, if any? Any metrics you might have?
Yeah, we had some technical difficulties with the changes with the permissions. I will be updating the membership metrics now, since I just got them from Legend, because I don't have access to the settings anymore for the server. We'll figure it out with Legend afterwards. Avid, I don't know if you had time to check the removals and the removals. Maybe you want to come up. If not, we will update the list like we do every time after the call in the Grape chat. Apologies, we had this permission issue. I just realized.
Wait,
No worries.
I went to the bathroom for 1 minute and I'm in the stage. What happened?
Thank you for that. I'm not sure how you ended up here. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
we'll continue. And if you get that information, just go ahead and let us know. It's not prio, but I'll just go ahead and proceed. Um, with our realms votes, quick updates for that. We have 2 realms votes going on, 3, sorry. First one that I'm going to mention is the April and May emissions. Again, this was just more centered towards the DAO and principal community members that have been helping uh, run the Grape Community for the past couple of epochs. Last time I checked, it had reached a quorum, and it was still majority voted yes. The same with the stake and delegate 3,000 soul to the Solana validator. Um, Realms is not loading for me right now
Take
for
some
some reason,
time.
but did
I
anyone else
post the
have any other
links.
comments? Thanks. Any other comments on these 2 proposals before we move to our first topic? Are there any questions from anyone in the audience about these 2 proposals, any of these 3 proposals we currently have right now? I'll give it about 30 seconds. Yeah, sure. What's your question, Legend?
So the proposal to stake the soul has been approved. Of course, the proposal to buy the soul is also approved. The thing is, where are we gonna proceed to stake the soul with the Hanko validator, or we are gonna still vote what to do with the where do we stake the soul? Like, I see more a viable option to instead of Hanko validator to get liquid soul, which would marinate or like Socean, and then
Yeah, maybe I
land that
can
liquid soul.
maybe I can elaborate a bit on that because I also talked to Sebastian over at the Realms Discord about that. Um, first of all, we need to, and that's topic number 1 on the agenda, need to figure out who does the purchase of the soul. So um, we could have done it basically, or probably through the vote itself on Realms. There is an option to do that, or they could have provided us with one. And I also talked about the possibility to directly stake through Realms. Obviously, we need to decide where we want to do that. So I asked them if we could specifically choose the validator, um, uh, respectively where to stake and to delegate the soul. And they're actually working on that. So it's really awesome that the guys responded to that, and also um, right now currently have a look into it. So we probably can do it directly through Realms, and this would be obviously then another vote. But in terms of where we want to stake, I think we best should do a discourse discussion. It obviously also depends on whether the deal with Hanko comes through, because obviously if it's our own validator that also is funded through the Solana Foundation, this would be a good thing because we would get like the revenue share from the validator. And the first step is to buy the soul. So I think we need to figure out this first, and then we can talk about where actually we want to stake the soul.
Yeah, I understood. Like, so it's another vote to where to delegate
Yeah, if we
the
do it
soul.
through realms, yes, definitely. And obviously there needs to be a discussion first.
Yeah, it's like if you're gonna seek a peak revenue or just the revenue, because if you have like the Hanko validator, of course you're gonna have revenue, but
Yeah.
you can also seek more revenue if you go for another option like Marinate Ocean and then land the liquid soul as well.
Yeah, I think the best option would be to like find a good solution with Hanko, and then it's not the Hanko validator, but the Grape validator. And if
Yeah,
it's a
yeah.
Grape validator, then we really don't have a choice.
Yeah, question answered. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if you got a chance to mention that the mechanism. I mean, that kind of keys us into the first topic of the realms vote to buy the 3,000. The mechanism, if I remember correctly, is being developed or already was developed by realms, so we'd be able to stake directly from there through a vote, correct?
It's always two steps, so I wouldn't do another Realms vote, but it's totally up to us. I wouldn't do another Realms vote to buy the soul. That's why I specifically phrased it the proposal the way that the Treasury Council, the DAO board, and also the researchers would possibly be able to make the trade. We should discuss it how we want to or when specifically we want to buy, but if this would be another Realms vote, it would first
Yeah.
take Realms to deploy the feature, and then we would need to wait like 6 days. So now, because the proposal to buy the soul succeeded, we are authorized to do the trade whenever we see fit until August 1st
Yeah, that makes
manually.
sense.
Yeah.
But for the delegation aspect, that will be a vote, correct?
Yeah,
And the
yeah,
mechanism to like
yeah.
to pick the poll is.
I mean, it depends. It definitely needs to be a discussion on discourse, I think, where we want to do it, but it doesn't necessarily need to be another vote. I just wanted to make sure whether there is an option to do it, and Sebastian was so kind and to put it on their roadmap, so they're working on a means to directly use realms, and then it would be a vote. But I also phrased the proposal that way for the staking, and it also succeeded that we theoretically could do it manually, so through the Treasure Council or whatnot. So it's up to us, really, how we want to do it.
Mhm. Yep.
Sure.
Did you guys already decided on which price to get the soul? Like,
No.
what price should we sweep in a way? Or will it be another discussion discourse?
I don't think that'll be a discussion. At least my understanding is that's not going to be a discussion. I think there are perhaps individuals that we will try to ask within
Yeah.
either the community or in researchers, and then probably it's not going to happen all at once, but probably just layered bids. My assumption.
I don't mind being a discussion, but time is crucial in this, you know.
Yeah, that's the point, and that's why I.
Legend. The whole point is to buy low and sell high.
Yeah, but how low can you go?
Yeah,
I don't know,
and we
man, but
all
if
know
you know, but let us know, because no one's got
how
that
well
answer.
it works to time the market, right? So, yeah.
Yeah.
Question answered. Thank you.
Yeah, and just quick reminder, if anyone, because we're all here in the DAO, if anyone ever wants to come onto stage, ask questions, please feel free. Your voice is equally important. And the questions help us understand more of what's happening with you guys as well. So on any topic, please feel free to raise your hand or simply ask in the live chat.
So maybe Chris Wellsfriends, you're here, or if you're here, maybe you can give some input on how you would do it, like by 3,000 Sol.
Hi.
Hi, hi.
Right?
Yeah, I would dollar average. I would slowly buy. I would never buy everything on the spot. Now, where are we gonna buy? It's not a huge amount, so it doesn't matter. Anywhere can we can accumulate 3,000 sol. But I would say we should be buying slowly every week.
Over what period?
The next 10 weeks. That's how I would think about it. Now we can do it, in the next 5 weeks if you think it's too slow. But the more we average, the lower the risk.
Okay, we actually do have from now on like 7 weeks until August 1st, so we could do that, split it.
Yeah,
Best
split it on
possible.
7 installments and buy every week. Every week that could be a different proposal connected to or to a trade.
Yeah, I think everyone is in favor of dollar cost averaging slowly. If 7 weeks is our time period, then we can decide at that point whether to do anywhere between 5 to 15%. Yeah. Who would be the people to execute this if we're not buying like through another realms vote? Who are the people who are going to execute this?
It obviously needs to be someone who has access to the wallet with the USDC or USDT. Because right now we like have 70K in the Realms wallet, so maybe we should do like have a channel for that or a thread on Discord where people can get input who are not here right now. So
I have a question for whales. I'm not smart enough to know this, but I've heard some people talk about it this way. Is like rather than putting in the bids to actually buying the soul, should we? Or I've heard people like buy the call options um, through like proposal. So you know what call option you're buying into at the time of the proposal. So I mean, what price you're buying into, and if let's say by the time your proposal expires, the market's like lower, then you just
Yeah, but
call.
then we are actually we're doing a derivative, like we want the soul.
Yeah, so
We're not gonna usually you're gonna do this in order to buy the call or the put or the whatever option with USDC, and
yeah,
actually trade the market in a way, try to time it, and
yeah.
also
So are there any um, options? I mean, any providers out there who actually let like settle in Sol? Like the ones that I know of, like Katana and Psi options, they both settle in US dollars, right? Is there
no,
anyone who actually
no,
settle in Sol?
nobody's gonna settle in Sol, because if you're gonna settle in Sol, you can just do a limit order.
Yeah. I mean, you can, but you see how like then it'll be advantageous for us to, well, especially like when you make a decision to buy at one time. Like
Yeah,
right now,
because but you're gonna do this in order to buy it at the discount, because you are aiming at that at a specific day where the option expires.
right?
There's going to be the price is going to be X, and because you've predicted that the price is going to be X, you're receiving a discount. So I think we're just adding too many layers of risk and uncertainty in a move that we actually are certain we want to do.
Okay.
I don't think it's worth it trying to time the market. I've never I've tried to understand call options and options in general and Black and Scholes models and all these things. They're pretty complicated, and since we want 3,000 Sol in order to stake into the validator, I think we should just buy 3,000 Sol. What you're saying could be a strategy for someone who is trying to play that difference, that extra profit that gives you that discount because you bought that option in that price that expires that date at a certain amount prior. I don't think we should go down that road. I would not be able to really give any constructive advice. It's rather deep. I'm overwhelmed by options sometimes.
Okay, makes sense. All right, yeah, I just wanted to ask if there's like a trick play that a lot of people do that we're just like not exploring, but I get your point. Yes.
And it would be different if there was something that you can settle in Sol. Then I would reconsider. I'm not saying that I would go for it. I would just think about it again.
Yeah. Like settling in Sol, I think is if there was a player who allowed us to buy these options and settle in Sol, then the game would completely change. But I hear you.
Is there a reason why we have until August to buy the Solana? Pause.
Yeah, when we talked about that, I don't know who mentioned it, but someone's noticed that it should be a limited time, and I thought we want to have the Sol in order to stake them in a validator, so it wouldn't make sense to have us like buying the Sol over like a year or two. Then we wouldn't have anything to stake. So it was
It
like
would
2
take too
months.
long for us to realize like the I
Yeah.
see. So I just saw Ponte's suggestion for the dollar cost averaging, which I think everyone is in favor of. But yeah, if we're doing it within our time frame, I think it's just something we can assess with select individuals within the community to decide,
Yeah.
or we
And
could just keep it very simple.
nothing says that we like if Sol crashes to like $1 or so, we can do another proposal.
True. Are there any other comments before we move on? Questions on buying the 3,000 Solana and why we're trying to do this? Okay, we can go ahead and move on to our second topic, which is what is your vision of Grape, rewards, compensation, and revenue? And I think at its base level, ideally what would be a success to me is if by the end of this talk, we at least have a V1, a version 1 of what our avenues or areas of revenue or potential revenue are within Grape. That reason being for me is, at least for me and anyone here on the DAO board or on the call can jump in if they want, is I would ideally want to be able to direct our resources on making that the best product or service possible within Grape, but we need to understand fully what these services are and what these areas that could potentially provide revenue to Grape, either to the Grape DAO or the Grape community, either in Grape or USDC. And I think that is very crucial before we proceed, at least in my eyes, before we proceed onto proposals for compensation. It doesn't need to be fleshed out, but at least some idea of where these areas are and how we can make them better.
And we talked about that during the board call that preceded the DAO call. And I, again, want to make sure that everyone understands where I'm coming from. I'm not saying that people shouldn't be compensated also in USDC for what they're doing, especially if they invest a lot of their time and do it like full time. For me, it's important what Dynite said, that we lay out a plan and also use maybe targets or certain milestones as benchmarks for ourselves. So if we say like we have a 3-month period where we want to pay people and do it out of the treasury, and knowing full well that these are expenses that we can't cover through revenue. We then need to make sure that we have like milestones set in place where we want to be a month from now, what we want to have achieved. And if it's like saying, okay, we need to find business cases during that month and have a business model at the end of the month, we need to ask ourselves after this month if we hit the milestone. Under these conditions, I think it's a good idea to continue paying people for what they're doing, because what we talked about during the call before the DAO call is that maybe the community didn't realize that we use infrastructure that is provided by people who are doing a lot of work, and those people were up until now paid as team members through other means, and those payments stopped. So if we want to use this infrastructure and the services of those people, we want to continue using them, we need to make sure that they are compensated. And in order for us to compensate them, we need to have revenue.
So we've had a couple of discussions when it comes to trying to analyze what these areas could be, and Ponti's just linked one something. Just on his chat, his business models for each product and sub DAO. And like I said, it's just a projection, but at least that is something that gives us an idea of what to expect within 2 years. Some of those avenues for revenue could be, Dean's List, GAN, Grape Art. And something we've talked about before is increasing, or at least creating a better structure for the line of communication in between these areas, so that we're better able to analyze these sub DAOs or these arms within Grape itself.
And how will people and contributors, be it individuals or sub-DAOs that don't produce revenue, or they're not able to produce revenue, but the community will be compensated? The way
You're cutting in and out, Taki. I'm not sure if that's just for me, but
and they're not exactly niche, to be honest, covered by revenue generated or projected before we
And for me, it's the
paying
same.
these
So
people. And by the time we figure all this out, how are these?
okay, I guess it's like a similar question we discussed during the board call. And again, for me, it's not. I'm not saying that we shouldn't start paying people right now. I'm saying that if we do that, we need to at the same time set goals and milestones and have a plan in place where we want to be in a month, in 2 months, in 3 months. And one of those milestones could be like evaluate our business cases for like 2-3 weeks, and then propose a business plan or business models, and have a business plan ready at end of, I don't know, next month, and then also have figures and an idea of where we want to be and what we really need, because we right now actually don't really know what the expenses were, right? So we don't know what the team members got paid. So we can now only start to gather all proposals for compensation. And after those proposals are in, we know what the monthly expenses would look like. And then we can start from there and say, okay, our monthly expenses are X and our projected revenue for like in 3 or 6 months could be or should be Y. And then we can make a decision on whether we want to proceed that way or not. What I'm against is starting USDC payments now without making a solid plan of what we want to achieve and when.
Have you given any thought to what that would look like? Pause. Or what we would want to achieve and when?
Yeah, as I said, we can start by like and that's why I think it's important that the whole community is involved. Everyone need to understand what we're facing and what the consequences would be if we like have no plan in place. Then obviously either we don't pay people in USDC, and that is something that is not, I think, a good idea, because then obviously people can't invest that much of their time and potentially the needed time in order to keep the infrastructure in place that we are used to, or we will run out of money. So one of the first things we need to do is figure out what business cases there are, and also ask ourselves whether the best thing in order to generate revenue is to be fully decentralized from the start. So this is obviously something we need to talk about at a certain point. And I think we can't have both, at least not right from the start. So one important part would be to figure out what or how we can generate revenue or get another means of income and USDC for that. And I'm not saying either that people or people who are part of a sub DAO that can't generate revenue shouldn't be compensated. On the contrary, there are many parts in an organization that don't generate revenue, and they are equally important. But it's also important that those members help us to figure out how we can generate revenue.
Looks like I was disconnected. I don't know if I was heard and I missed the last couple of 2 minutes of our conversation. What I want to ask, and I'm sure if this has been answered like in the past 90 seconds or so, until we figure out all the plans regarding revenue, the business plans and whatnot, what happens to individuals or entities or sub-DAOs that continue to contribute, but also their contributions are not immediately tied to revenue, and it's not possible to be tied to revenue? What they should expect in return of their contribution? And will the goal of any business plan or any entity or sub-DAO or individual that brings revenue back to Grape will be to not only bring revenue for themselves, for Grape, but also to bring revenue back to cover the costs to maintain the other contributors. What do we do in this case?
Exactly the part I was referring to in my post. I linked, like, I don't know where I did it. It's rewards, compensation, and revenue. I took those two examples, like Gun and Dean's List, as an example because that's exactly where our problem is in my view. We try to decentralize everything, and obviously then what happens is the DAO doesn't make any revenue, and people or any form of generate any form of USDC income, because it's like outsourcing services. And if we want to do that, we need to be aware that we need other means of income in order to compensate for that, in order to pay people who can't generate revenue but are working for the DAO, the Grape DAO. If we don't do that, we can't afford to pay the people. It's that simple. And that's why I meant we need to figure out how we want to approach those things in the future. Do we want to be that decentralized that everyone who can generate revenue just walks away and makes their own project, side project? Or do we want to keep it within Grape and make it attractive for those people who can generate revenue, and also like have a form of integrating them in order that the Grape DAO profits directly in form of USDC by them providing the service? This is an important part. And for me, it came across the couple of last month that everyone was in favor of decentralization, and that's the disconnect for me, right? So I think we can't have both from the start. We need to be sustainable, and then we can ask ourselves, okay, how can we decentralize this more and keep being sustainable?
Right, the balance lies in what both of you are talking about. It takes time to refine and create the structural process that we are trying to create for ourselves right now. But the same way that we know DAOs aren't truly decentralized, that there is some degree of centralization in order for it to work, there needs to be some degree of uh, of that business plan, so we understand that this is we have the sustainability for Grape to continue pushing the products that we want.
Yeah,
When it
well
comes
said.
to what my vision of Grape is, to put it simply, it's DAO tooling on hand and convenient, and that tackles various areas. Some that we've tried and failed in the past, and we might revisit again. One that we just kind of brought back was the newsletters. We did it in bounty format, which is fine, but there's also marketing, education, the DAO structure, the verification tools, DAO creation, SBTs. If we explore that, what if these NFTs in the future might want their own marketplaces, which they have already done with Bears Reloaded? Amazing, right? But all that tooling for projects or DAOs, Grape can be the one-stop shop. And everything, all that for me is tied to the user experience. So it falls on us to at least find the balance between the two. Like, we don't have to turn a profit immediately, but at least if we have some general outline V1 of what those avenues will be.
Yeah, and we need to get comfortable with the idea that we, while being this one-stop shop, we need to like sell those things. We can't give them away. We can give part of them away, but we need also have some form of kickback in terms of USDC, in terms of revenue. And this balance really is important, because I at the same time also want to be decentralized, and I love the idea, and I can totally get behind that. But at the same time, I also want to be able to answer you those questions, Taki. Who is paying for the people who can't generate revenue directly, but are vital for the project itself to stay alive.
If Billy is here, I would love to have his perspective on this. Or Riptide. Or anyone in the DAO for that matter, but I know those individuals are really good at enunciating and enumerating their ideas out. Right?
Yeah, I like what what Dynite said that in one sentence, grape is DAO tooling and on hand and convenience. Like that's short to the point, and everybody could understand that messaging, right? Like that is what we're not probably doing a good job in communicating to everybody. That's what grape will be the best at.
And where do you sit right now? Like, because everyone here is for compensation, for fair compensation, for what the work that people are putting into Grape itself. But how do you see us tackling that right now as we continue to pivot and shift right now in the Grape ecosystem?
Yeah, it's tricky for sure, but we need to definitely tackle this. Anybody that's contributing and spending a lot of time in Grape, and we believe as a DAO, we should also compensate them in USDC. We should review all these proposals um, and see exactly what value everybody is bringing and the work that they're putting. You can't have people working and spending like a lot of their personal time, and to continue to do that without rewarding them in some way. So I think as a DAO, we need to be responsible and tackle that from the beginning. It's not, we don't need to wait for the revenue to figure these problems out. There are people that are contributing because they believe in what we want to achieve. And as a DAO, we need to be responsible and award these grants for these contributions.
For how long do you think we should do that? And I know it's you can't really answer that, and I'm more of a devil's advocate here, but
I understand that the issue, the reason why we are also as a DAO, we don't have unlimited funds if there's no like incoming source of additional funds. So I understand that we need to be careful and wise as a DAO, but at the same time we need to recognize that there's definitely people that are putting a lot of time and reward these people. It's not fair to just to give out a grape when somebody clearly has put in a lot more of their personal time. We need to recognize that.
100% true. What I mentioned during the board call was basically that what irritates me a bit is that the decision made by the team, which obviously is something that only the team can decide. But what I would have loved is to have like a warning, like 3 months ago or half a year ago, let's say, the team saying, okay, we want to get more decentralized, guys.
We did from the beginning say that the DAO will have more and more control over time. So it's not like it was a surprise.
Yeah. But the
We
important
just
part for
followed
me,
through with what we said we would do.
I understand, but the important part for me here is like also disclose maybe not on a person level, but say like we have monthly expenses where the team members are paid X amount of USDC, and in like 6 months, this is on the DAO so that the project can continue to run along as it does right now. If the DAO doesn't
Here,
find a way to
yes,
generate X amount of USDC, everyone needs to be aware
you're
we
bringing up,
can't provide the service anymore.
you're bringing up two issues. So the compensations that were occurring prior to moving to actually getting rid of this whole idea of a separate team. These are, the compensations and how much everybody gets paid outside of the DAO is something, personal and private, and we respect that.
That's
And
what I meant, not on
you
per person level.
cannot share information without getting, permission from everybody to do that.
No,
I would just want to be clear on that.
I'm not saying right
Uh,
now. But what I meant is that this would have been the better way to like give the DAO the chance to really understand. And what I mean by the DAO is basically everyone but the team to understand that this will come at a certain time and that the DAO needs to be prepared to have like expenses of X amount of USDC just to keep things as they are or things running. And with this in mind, people hopefully would have also have had a different view of just handing out stuff, like saying, oh, it's okay that we don't charge anything for like services, or that there is a sub-DAO or a separated community. If there is a responsibility for the DAO to monthly fund some people who also rely on this USDC, this would have been a good heads up. Just saying.
yes,
Yeah,
but
hindsight's
just
20/20 for that, but
sorry, I just want to finish what I was thinking about what you just said. The ability for somebody to put up a proposal, it wouldn't be fair if we would shove existing compensations into the DAO and enforce the DAO to continue or not continue paying any specific member. I think if we show like preferential treatment to anyone in the community, then that wouldn't be fair to people that want to make a proposal. They what like Dim did and Takisol did. These are example proposals. These are meant to be to start discussions. It doesn't mean we have to accept these proposals, but if other members could see these discussions going on, that's how they're going to be able to start making similar proposals. If you understand what I'm saying is I think my personal opinion is that we shouldn't enforce to continue doing what we have been doing all this time. The community as a whole needs to come up with the model that works for the DAO, because now we're no longer something, there's a team and a DAO. No, we're all part of the same community. I mean, we've always been part of the same community, we're just making all the organizational structure be one.
mhm. Dim, do you want to outline your thoughts that we had on the DAO board call from before?
Yeah, often in these calls we have a DAO board calls before, and I forget that most people haven't listened to what was discussed earlier. I'm very close to what Billy is saying. I think the move that we've made now allows anybody from the community to ask for compensation. And as I said, specifically, I'm talking about people who are on stage right now, like Pause, Riptide, you, Dynite, and people that are in the audience also, who can propose what they can be working on a more professional manner because they're going to be getting actually compensated from the project in USDC in an extremely counter cyclical opportunity. Like let's take a step back and kind of think about the current market conditions and what we're discussing right now. The fact that we have nearly a $1 million treasury, and the fact that we are a project that enables people in our community to take part-time or full-time work from this project. So this is a completely counter-cyclical market opportunity that we should not take for granted. And what I think is the biggest danger right now to us is being extremely strict with it and reaching a point where this discussion leads to complete inaction, where we have guys like Taki Soul or you know, let's say I'm just naming names, Riptide, who maybe, or Hanko, who could have expected to work here through the treasury, and not saying generically that we need to be producing revenue and staying there. That's not going to help at all. Where we have some proposals that at least get us get the foot in the door to continue some action or initiate something new. That's where I stand, and I'm still extremely interested to see where this goes. And
Did you cut out?
be able to consider proposal and have a completely holistic business plan. I think that's going to be, that doesn't distinguish us from a traditional company. And I don't think we need to be a traditional company per se. Like, as I
Dim, you're cutting out.
The internet gods
said,
are not in
I'm with Dean
favor
and
of
Taki
what
Soul.
Jim is saying.
Am I still cutting out?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Wait a second. Wait. Apologies. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I was on a roll. I was just saying that, you know, Dynet could be working with Hanko on the delegator. Like, people can have different goals from Grape and be working on different things. And if the DAO feels that these are initiatives that are worth going after, let's fucking go after those. That's all I'm saying. Obviously, revenue needs to be at the forefront of what we're thinking, but we need some action there. That's all I'm saying. Dynet, yeah. McDonald's internet, yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not gonna.
Yo,
I'm
get
not.
in my DMs, bro. If the market's been bad, you get on my DMs, dude. We'll figure something out for you. All right.
Yeah, that's me. That's me.
No, but like what you said is exactly right, and it falls on us to increase to develop that structure for communication, so we understand where to divert our resources, whether it's the validator, whether it's the GAN token, whether it's Dean's List or the marketplace, because we have talented individuals here, and what a wonderful opportunity, or what a wonderful position it is to be discussing this. You know, right now, like all of our interests are aligned here. We all want what's best for the community. We all want the compensation, right? But we're gonna make mistakes as we have already, and we're making them like together as the DAO board, not as a DAO board, as a DAO. There it is. Freudian slip. Sorry.
Yeah, and to me, what my sentiment echoes that of Billy and by what's been said by Dim. We have proposals in front of us, and I wish I wish that we have more proposals like this every day, but by people that contribute to Grape and they ask for something in return. And we need to start thinking about these proposals rather than thinking out every possible outcome, every possible thing, every possible reason that led us to the situation that we are today. And like also Hanko said in the chat, I'm just seeing this now, we were falling into extreme scrutiny without taking action. At least this is my personal approach of things.
That's always been the ethos of Grape, to kind of lean into it and like we'll figure it out along the way. On any, like, at least in my experience when I've asked around, even simple things to metaverse, it's always like, try it out. It doesn't work, we fix it. And that's what happens when you're trying to figure this stuff when no one else is doing it or trying to figure it out at the same time. Riptide, was there something you wanted to say on this topic?
I think we've fairly well covered it. I do kind of agree with Pause that it's such like a nebulous thing where we don't really know where we've come from. It makes it hard to kind of understand where we will be going. We obviously have the grand ambitions and ideas that are there. It's just like I still think I would come back to the sustainability kind of question as well. Like it's an important thing to know, I think, to say, yeah, we're this is our burn rate that we can expect to go for another year, expect to go for another 2 years, 3 years, etc., etc. It's like it's the kind of thing as well, like where people were more recently we've been saying, we've got this amount in the treasury at the minute, we can do a further raise down the line, and then someone was like saying, well, hang on, we were even getting offers not too long ago to buy Grape, etc., and bring in some revenue, and that was beaten down. And it's like, well, it was, well, that was somewhat true. As I said, I pointed out that it never made it on chain, that question of whether we should raise anything. But even at the time, it wasn't clear in terms of like, well, this is like, say, our ongoing expenses. This is what's in the treasury or here and there. Like this is like all these different kind of ideas and numbers and things like that. And it's and the question of fairness comes up, and it's like, so like it's like, well, maybe this seems like a lot of money here, or maybe it seems like not so much money there, but at the same time it's like, until say we get proposals in from like, say, everyone that would have been receiving um compensation previously, or even all the people that are further requesting compensation, we can't really it becomes very difficult to sign things off, because I said before, like, if we start signing off compensation now, and then in like a month's time someone goes, oh yeah, by the way, I was also getting compensation for this and that, and then we said, oh well, actually we've paid out all the compensation we can at the minute, sorry. It's we're potentially in a difficult position where there's just so, like, I personally feel there's just a lot of unknowns right now, and it's and we're not getting a lot of clarity there.
Another question everybody should ask themselves is, on realms today, if they do add this solution, which DAO is going to be the first DAO to be actively using, KYC verification by a DAO? It's going to be Grape again. So we shouldn't look at these opportunities that we have in front of us as these challenges, sorry, as obstacles. Like, we might make some incorrect short-term decisions, and maybe accepting a few grants that we maybe shouldn't or should. But the DAO should constantly be asking for information and if we cannot provide that information, for the reasons which I explained earlier, should ask more questions for more clarity. If there's anything that we could provide, to the DAO to help everybody be on the same page, that everybody wants transparency, but there's also a limit to like some information which we have to respect.
You made the point earlier that like you don't have to disclose, or you can't disclose salaries. That makes sense. You'd have to get permission from people. But Paul's also said like you don't need to disclose salaries if you just get a headline figure. If we think of like I'm probably going to get flack for bringing it up, but I'm saying if we think of any kind of Web2 company, they'll put out their corporate report, and they don't list. They might list the C-level people, but they don't list like kind of feet on the streets, like every person about what they're earning. They'll have a high level kind of like, and even then, like some companies might not list what the. Oh no, I think they have to. It doesn't matter. I'm rambling a little bit. The point is, they'll have like a headline figure of operational expense. They'll have revenue, etc., etc. They'll go through those. That's just information that any public company would put out there and has to put out there. But like even private companies, like that's not NDR kind of stuff. It's not private information, or it's not specifically saying, oh, this person has earned that amount. It's not infringing on their privacy if it's just a headline figure.
And doing that, exactly what Richard said, would force the DAO to address the issue that there are monthly expenses, and I think we need to figure out what we're dealing with. Is it like 20K, 30, 100? I don't know. And this obviously has a fundamental impact on how we think about revenue and whether it's important to have revenue on a monthly basis. And also, this would have changed things probably, I'm not sure, but for me at least, it would have changed things if talks like having VCs coming in and purchasing a larger amount of grape, because we need to ask ourselves, how do we want to pay the bills? How are we able to do it if there are certain expenses each month? But if we don't have this information, how should we make this decision?
Guys, hey, so there's $600,000 in the grape treasury. There's not a single other fucking expense that anybody needs to know about, and no one's ever asked about. Like, this is just a ridiculous conversation at this point, and I'm gonna have to be an adult and say this has nothing to do with anything else. Grape Labs is taking on expenses that push forward what Grape is doing, but at no point do I want anybody to think that any permission is being asked. I don't give a fuck what any of you think Grape Labs does to move Grape forward. I've not asked your permission. No one in Grape will ever ask your permission. And that has never been insinuated in any way, shape, or form. Let's move on, because none of this has anything to do with any of you. And many of you here are acting like children, asking to know stuff. If you want to be an adult and want to know this stuff, you could supply your KYC information, you can fill out an NDA, and then we can move forward. So anyone who wants to do this can send me their passport, can send me their proof of address, and then I'll be in touch with the NDA.
I might do that, but for me, it's not childish to want to know those kinds of information, because I want to make.
That P&L has nothing to do with Grape.
But it has.
No, it has nothing to do with Grape.
People got
I want
paid.
you to understand this. Imagine it's zero. Okay, at this point in time, it's zero. So what do you need to know if it's zero?
Then people would get zero and to continue what they're doing, because obviously they didn't want anything before.
Fine. Grape Labs is zero. In all of your minds, Grape Labs is zero. No one here has anything to do with that.
That's totally fine by me, because then we
We're
obviously
agreed. It's zero. We're agreed.
then we
And
obviously don't need to have the conversation.
there are 10 billion things that the DAO board and all of us can be talking about. This is a waste of time. Let's move on.
Okay, we're halfway through June. We want to pay people fair compensation. Do we give a deadline for when people's proposals should come in for their compensation that they're going to request from the DAO? Because otherwise, like if we only have one or two that are kind of like the templates, we won't really get to a deadline there, will we? We need probably a hard cutoff for when people need to start claiming this compensation for the DAO to go, yep, here you go.
I like that. I like that idea. That idea was also
We've been saying that. We've been saying that since early June, man. Me and Tim have been saying this in calls since early June. That yeah, we need to have. People are more than welcome to post a compensation proposal for their contributions, but they need to do it in a certain timely fashion so that the DAO can evaluate which ones can be afforded, which ones will pass, which ones will not go through on-chain votes or something like that. And yet, 3 weeks later, we're still in the same spot because we keep scrutinizing things.
So should we say by the end of this month or halfway through next month?
I would say by tomorrow.
Where is the budget? Do we have a budget? Do we have a time frame? What happens if if the 3 months pass and nothing changed? Do we do it again?
You reevaluate.
Just
That's exactly what you want.
You're going to reevaluate any existing proposals at the end of that quarter.
And not just that. As
Yeah,
a
but
DAO
then we
board
have the
member,
same problem. Sorry, Dim, but then we have the same problem. You will say, Taki, it's not fair to pay people that did great work because they're doing great work now. And we aren't any way closer to getting any form of revenue. That's the exact same discussion will happen in 3 months if we don't set any goals or targets that we want to reach.
for a
guys,
proposal to
to
pass.
help with a different way of looking at things, I want to share this. So Jairus recently had shared some work he wanted to do. What I did is I took Jairus's work and I put it together as a Solana Foundation grant. So now Jairus had asked for a certain compensation. I went to the Solana Foundation and asked for his compensation plus a certain amount, and they've approved it. So that will be the first revenue coming in for a videographer, for example. And I think that that's a model that works. So I do see what you're saying, CryptoPause. There should be revenue connected to things. I am making sure that for this there is going to be revenue. So I think that one very good example that people can do is think about how their work also impacts Solana and apply for Solana Foundation grants. I think that's a fantastic option. I'm very proud that we've already gotten one. And I'm going to be working with Hanko over the next 24 hours to supply 2 more grants. So yeah, I think that this is a very good option for people to choose.
It definitely is, and we talked a bit about that. I think that's a good start. What we need to figure out is what Taki, what you mentioned, is people who can't really, prove that their work is important for, like Solana itself, or that is not directly connected to revenue. We need to figure that out. But I feel that is a good way, and I said that before, Dean.
Yeah, and I apologize. I'm late to the conversation. I'm kind of shocked that this got into compensation again. You know, we're probably gonna die as a DAO if continuously most of the time we speak is about compensation.
Well, that was pretty cool to hear. For proposals on compensation, if we wanted to keep with the timeline, which kind of takes us into our next topic, we're not going there yet. If we wanted to keep with our time frame from before, quarterly, this makes it very difficult to evaluate for starting in July. For people to push their compensation proposals forward. I like the idea of putting in a deadline. I think we've made some progress, at least on identifying what our potential areas of revenue are as well.
Yeah. As I said, I'm not against paying people. I'm for a deadline. I'm for certain milestones and also consequences if milestones aren't reached. Like in not being able to pay the next quarter or not in full or whatever. But we need to nail this down.
Tim Taki, these will be evaluated on a monthly basis. At which point, I guess those milestones will be outlined in the compensation proposal. But
Yeah,
these will be evaluated on a monthly basis, and either by the DAO itself will say this person brought value to Grape and hit whatever they were trying to do on their compensation proposal. Is that correct?
yes, exactly. And the DAO board is in a position to do that, right? Because they have a holistic view of what's going on, and also any DAO member will be able to push a let's say a I don't know how to name it, but there should be a way for any DAO member to say, look, I don't think Dim is doing a good enough job. I didn't vote yes for him to get in this comp for what he's doing. He's not doing enough, and then there should be a formal, a procedure where the comp could be stopped or whatever. I think that's fair, and we've kind of outlined this in the article that Taxol and I have pushed.
Again, good idea. I'm behind that, but that's the distribution part. For me, it's finding the budget and approving on the budget and having a time frame for finding revenue to support this budget. And if we don't hit the milestones that we see that we clearly can fund this budget, then there needs to be consequences for the budget. And in turn, this will have consequences for the distribution. The distribution part, I'm totally okay with that. But
Yeah.
the definition of what the budget is for a certain amount of time, let's say 3 months or a month or
For a
whatever,
specific individual, for everybody.
first for everybody, there's a budget. And
Mhm.
then we take the budget and
Mhm.
see what proposals there are and if the proposals exceed the budget or not.
I agree. I think we as a DAO board should come up with a number that we say this is the budget for the next 3 months. We put this out. We wait for proposals to come in. I don't know. In my opinion, we shouldn't give more than this week. So by next Sunday, every proposal should come in, and then the DAO evaluates, along with the DAO board, evaluates who should get their comp or who shouldn't.
Again,
That sounds great
that's
to
the
me. But I'm
distribution
gonna take
part.
I'm gonna take us on a tangent really quickly because I think God's loved out. I want him to come up and talk about because I know he needs to leave soon. but he's brought up a lot of good points concerning the DAO board election. So if you want to just come up real quick, God's love, speak your piece, and we'll come back to this. Because this is also something that's very crucial to what's coming up here in a little over a week.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
All right. Sorry, I actually need to leave a little early, so I'm sorry. I'm um, moving your agenda a little bit, and thanks for getting me on. I wanted to talk about the board election a little bit more, and I've talked to Dean a little bit about it. Dianite, I've talked to you a little bit about it. The idea is, uh, basically we've had a I wouldn't say bad, but like a decent board election mechanism where people could come and say I wanted to be a part of the board, and then they would be elected by some sort of a vote on Discord or discourse, and then they would have their roles. um, I think had a opportunity to like present your vision when you put yourself in that role. But again, I don't think it was, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it was structured um, really well in order to um, measure what you were bringing to the role. So I and I know the board election is up end of this year, right? I mean this epoch, which is this month. So my first proposal was to extend the existing board's tenure was, or not proposal, but a recommendation was to extend the existing board's tenure by one more epoch. And the second recommendation was um, to build some sort of um, expedited, maybe not perfect, but of what we have learned so far, off-chain, um, uh, you know, reputation system that we can then use in our board elections. So we've talked about reputation systems, soulbound tokens, um, but we haven't really thought about where we want to apply them first, right? Um, uh, One good place to apply them is, I think, the board elections, because you really want, like, all of the properties that you can think of for a reputation comes with somebody who you're putting in a position that has responsibility. So we can um, again, I'm going to keep this really short, and I can write this up in a proposal if people think that this makes sense. But the idea is, like, whoever stands for election, like, needs to have some sort of um, a reputation to be able to stand for that election, for a board position, right? And they also need to then say, if I get elected, these are the things that I want to achieve. And now that goes with their reputation, like per epoch, if they are able to achieve that reputation. Um, and we continuously measure that, and at the next election, people can then actually see, hey, this is a person, this is what they promised they would do, and this is what they did. Um, Hopefully, then that makes our election system a bit richer down the line. And then again, the whole idea is, once we build the system, can we then make that a part of DAO tooling? So say, hey, whoever gets DAO tooling from Grape inherits this election system that they can use. Um, but that's kind of the mind dump of like everything that I had thought about. If you guys think like this doesn't make sense, or this is completely um, too aggressive, or might hamper, then we can completely hold off. Go with the elections right now. Um, But I think the whole idea that we have this idea that we want to think about, and there's this real place that we can apply that idea, makes it really lucrative for me to kind of push for it. But that's it.
I love everything you said, dude.
So do you guys feel like I should go ahead and like I know Dianite, you had said you wanna like maybe work together. Maybe we can come up with um a way, like maybe the first draft of like how we might want to do the reputations for the first board elections, and then kind of
Yeah,
go with that.
yeah, we had discussed this briefly earlier this week, and I guess we could just show them that our time zone is just better. So
Yeah, I think um that time zone works best. But yeah, again, um maybe like we can just it's just that time zone works for most of us when you guys in Europe are sleeping. But if any of you are late nighters, like you guys can jump into calls with us too, and we can kind of discuss that further.
Would this conversation also include the what the we had touched on what the board does and is, and then I think it was a very fruitful conversation. Would you guys also be covering that, or just the election component?
Well,
I
I
would
I
like to
don't.
also cover that as well, because I do agree. Like it's been the umbrella's been too big, and it's just gotten bigger for the past I don't know 6 months, however long we've been doing this. Um, I am personally in favor of the membership lens, and of course, with that comes with communication. But gods, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm hoping like we can start putting something on a Miro, and then like identify which are the places that they actually intersect. And are those intersections something that we can work independently on, or that intersection actually needs to be flushed out for us to, build it for the elections? And I think we will discover that. I don't have the answer for that, but I think once we put it on a board and look at it, like we'll have a better answer to say, can these be solved independently, or do
Yep.
these have to be solved
Yeah,
together?
good idea.
Yeah, I think the most important is that before we start thinking about voting for the next DAO board, we understand what are the capabilities, like what do we expect of these people,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and it really needs to be that a DAO board needs to be able to meet and resolve its issues on its own. That is the imperative, because otherwise it's an opinion group. Don't get me wrong. The DAO board should be leveraging every single group and asset and resource within. But for us to really be decentralized, we need to be able to trust the skill sets of each other and respect those skill sets, right? Like at the end of the day, a DAO board that says, I decree Billy must work on this is never going to work, right? That can't be the case. Whereas a DAO board could say, I decree we will work on this. That I think works just by virtue of how decentralization is.
But Dean, I think what we're doing here is like flipping the narrative, right? Here we're saying rather than the DAO board to come up with what the board needs to do, like everybody says what they want to work on, and now everybody votes on those ideas that each of those people have proposed. So by lieu of them getting elected, the board has basically said, these things are important to me, work on them because you promised to do that, and then we measure you on your promise.
Yeah, then I think we're in agreement that if you're running for this, it assumes you can work on this,
Yes,
not
yes,
comment
exactly.
on it, because
Right.
there are plenty of great commenters. Okay, we're in agreement. Thank you.
Yeah, that's how that we have to hold people accountable, right? And like that person doesn't have to actually work it, but they might know the people who can get that done, right? And that's absolutely fine. Or they can work with the project to get that done. It's not. I'm not trying to make everybody builders. That's absolutely not my purpose. But I think the idea is to take that ownership and deliver. And I think having that measured, so that the DAO can make a better
I see what you're
decision
saying.
on whether to give that person responsibility in the future.
I see what you're saying, because if somebody has proven that they can, like, let's say you're not technical, but you have proven that you can work with technical resources or the developers that we have, to be able to work on something of that acumen. Yeah, I just don't want us to get back into a DAO call structure where it's like, well, we can't really talk about this because this guy's not here, or we can't talk about this because that guy's not here. That would be the worst place to be back to. We need to be able to say every conversation, things are moving forward, and get rid of this illusion of, like, one of the things that's really triggered me this week was the need to know comment from Ride and Red. It's like everything's on the blockchain, bro. Like, I'm not going to spoon feed you. It's not the same as need to know. And we need to move away from that fallacy where it's like, you know, people should be able to work on what they can work on. And if they want to report back and share what they're working on, that's up to them. Like, we need to move away from this notion of we can tell people what they have to do. You know, we are working on things that we're interested in, and then we acknowledge these interests and we acknowledge these contributions. But
Right,
the
but I
force
think
doesn't work.
the DAO, like every person with holding Grape, should be able to weigh in to say, yes, you as an individual are working that, that's fine, but is that important for us, right? And
Yeah,
that's the
and that comes
election.
from the compensation part, right? Where it's like, look, you want to work on this, that's great. We're not going to give you any grape, but go for it. Like, you want to work on this?
Yes,
That's
the
completely up to
compensation
you.
the compensation is part of it, but what I'm mostly trying to focus on is the whole board, or the like, if like, how do you measure someone's promise and delivery? And that's kind of like all I'm kind of like trying to think about right now is, if you say, this is something that's important, I'm willing to work on it, and everybody in Grape believes that yes, that is important, and we believe that you can do this. 3 months go by. Have you done that? Does the Grape has visibility into that and can take better decisions going forward? That's it.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely. I 100% agree with that. That if we have as a group a priority, and then 3 months later, I think 3 months is a ridiculous amount of time to have no update or progress. So yeah, I think we're completely aligned on this.
all right, guys. Thanks a lot. I have to jump off, and happy Father's Day to everybody else celebrating.
Thank you, bro. Happy Father's Day.
Bye.
Thanks, gods. Yeah, in terms of that structure, we had discussed this briefly on the thread. Ideally, I would like to move into more of an updates from these separate entities, whether it be the GAN token or the dev team. And we become a little bit more surgical when we're discussing topics on the DAO call, so that we actually have next steps. Because I think the scope has gotten too wide, and that does start with identifying those benchmarks. It's easier with the membership lens, in my view, because I personally am a fan of just the user experience when it comes to Grape. But does anyone else have any comment on this topic? Any from the DAO board? How do we feel about extending this one more epoch while we develop somewhat of the structure for this?
Extending one more epoch, what, to the DAO board?
Yeah. Or just not even having
How
a DAO
many
board. I guess we
how,
really don't need that.
how many members of the DAO board are present here today?
4,
How many members does the DAO board have?
5.
How long has this been that we are 4 out of 5 present?
Maybe 3 out of the past 4 weeks, if memory serves.
Do you think this form of this composition of the DAO board should be allowed to continue, to extend for one epoch?
I think it's
I
more
think
hassle to change it now for however long than to figure out something that we want to do after the next epoch. That's my opinion. Because we obviously did, yeah, we were able to work, so.
I think one person doesn't break the flow.
Dim, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, honestly. I'm not sure about that. I need to give it some thought. But I also agree that we are currently 4 out of 5 members. I'm not sure what Archimedes is looking to do. He hasn't communicated anything. I'd much rather us having a discussion and see what we can propose all together potentially.
That would be my approach as well.
Okay. I guess we'll have that answer by Tuesday then, with our internal discussions.
Yep.
One moment. I guess we can circle back onto this proposal for compensation. We were discussing distribution versus milestones, and I think we were conflating the two.
Yeah, I remember Dim saying something about fight. I don't want to fight you. What I mentioned was
I'm just joking, obviously. Just
I
a
know,
joke.
I know. If I remember correctly, we were like talking about the distribution part, and for me, it's still the part of defining the budget, defining the milestones, and defining, yeah, a way to get revenue in order to provide this budget. So the budgeting part is more important than the distribution part right now, for me at least. And if we have that fixed, then we can discuss the distribution. Of course, people can make proposals for whatever compensation they feel is warranted. And if we have a budget, then we can look at the proposals and see whether it fits or not, or whether the proposals make sense.
Yeah, I understand. I just again, I just feel like what you're saying is right. But the operationalization of this is another story. Like, okay, you want a budget. How would you go about determining that budget?
I'd look at the revenue aspect again.
Okay, let's say that there is no immediate revenue that we can track as of now.
See, the easiest way would be to look at the treasury, say, okay, what's the runway if we take a certain amount each quarter or each month, and determine whether we are okay with that. And then we have a budget.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying as well.
And
yeah.
The most basic part would be saying, okay, we have a budget and we distribute a budget for the next 3 months. And in terms of a business plan, there is actually no need to have one at the end of the 3 months. And we'll see you then. This could be an option. I would be against it, but it could be an option.
I think what is required is for us to come up with a definitive budget as a DAO board. I think this is part of our responsibility. We are providing strategic direction. This is part of it. We need to make sure that as a business decision, we can figure out what's the budget that we're comfortable with to explore all of this for the next 3 months. We manage to do this, then we get compensation proposals coming in. Right. And we let the DAO decide. Is that what you consider simply distribution?
Come again?
To me, that makes sense as a process, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does. But what I want to point out is that if we do the distribution aspect and not work on everything else, these 3 months will pass and we will be at the exact same spot where we are right now.
But these votes will not pass. That's what I'm saying. These votes will not pass. The only votes that will pass are from the people that are going to provide the DAO with enough of a vision and drive that they will be doing something. Like if I come up and I say I want
understand that,
USD,
and that's totally fine. It makes sense, but it's still a number greater than 0, and it will have an impact on the treasury. And if we don't find ways, you get what I mean.
I get what you mean. It's just I think I have more trust in the way that the DAO can decide than you do right now. That's how I see it. And I'm not saying it's not a negative. Like it's just
no. I know. I'm quite pessimistic, but to be fair, we never focused on it. So I'm also quite hopeful that we can achieve something. But in terms of revenue, yeah, the past 11 months or what aren't a good precedent or a good example, rather. I just don't want us to be in the same position 3 months from now.
Me neither.
No one does.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement. And, these are things that help frame. Framing is important, right? Like there was this moment over the weekend or during the week where I said, hey, the NFT Council wants 20,000 Grape for giving the NFTs. And, oh, what? Why you give it? Oh, it's like, wait 1 second. There's work going in here. There's an asset. Oh, well, do we need to give the NFTs? It was the first time where this action where we were doing was put into question by putting things into a lens, into a framework. All of a sudden we start asking these important questions. So I'm a very big fan of, hey, compensation. Okay, what's the metric connected to it? And that's that shares the same value I have for on the DAO board side. Hey, the DAO board, Ryan Red, he was the first to raise his hand. Give these guys $10 billion. They all deserve it. Okay, what are we measuring them by? We do not measure, we just give. So either we across the board just give or across the board we measure. And I'm massively in favor of measuring. There should be nowhere where we just say, because someone did something, they deserve something. No, we vote on what we want. We collectively vote. This is where we need to put our resources. Just the same thing that we're discussing with Hanko, the same thing we've done with the bounties for Kirk and Billy, the same thing that we're doing now with Jarris. Everywhere we're going to give value, we need to see value. If we don't measure in one place, then the entire system is flawed. That's why everything we compensate needs to be measurable. Everything we work on, we need to agree that wholeheartedly that is worth our time. And now, of course, there are going to be things that are difficult to measure, but that doesn't mean we don't try, right? And you'll see there are going to be people who are going to raise their hand and say, "But you can't measure this." Well, I guess we don't need it then. That is going to be my response. And it's going to be very few people that are confident to say, "You can't measure what I do." Because guess what? We probably don't need it then. Everything can be measured. Everything should be measured. Rider in red, if you think it's a good proposal, put it on chain, dude. Let's see if it passes. I think it's a very bad proposal. That's my opinion. Your opinion is that it's a good proposal. Okay, we have two opinions. Now what? You're going to type something to disagree with me. You can come up here and talk too. All I'm saying is you have one opinion, I have another one. That's it.
Hello.
What's up, dude? Happy Father's Day.
Thanks. No, I just wanted to tell you that I can't put it on chain because I'm not a Neanderthal, so I don't see how you mean that.
Oh, okay. So your opinion then, if it's a valid one, if someone believes in you being right, they will champion your proposal and put it on chain. I, being a Neanderthal, do not agree, so I will not be the champion of your proposal.
Okay, that's fine.
It looks like we have next steps. At least for the DAO board, one is to create a budget for the next 3 months, if I heard this correctly. Evaluate whether we want a DAO board extension and create a deadline for the compensation proposals, which I think should be a week from now.
I completely agree with that plan.
Pause. Taki, anyone else?
I fully agree.
Which at what point will there be like is there going to be any voting on chain, or is this all going to be on discourse?
We did it on Discourse because there's no option to have it's a binary decision on chain, right? So we had no good alternative.
Okay.
Maybe it's something we should talk to the Rams guys with, because I figure there are multiple instances where a non-binary vote on chain would make sense.
Yeah, I think discourse is fine. You know, speaking on my own like voter thoughts, I'm very aligned with this idea for the membership lens. So I'm going to vote for candidates based on that. And then, this avenue should exist. If I don't feel that there's a good enough uh, framework or candidate pool to work on the membership lens, then I would vote for us to not have a DAO board. That would be my ideal selection, pool, that I can vote for members that I believe are going to work on something that I think is going to be productive use of their time. And if we don't have that membership pool, that we just don't bother with having a DAO board. That would be my ideal. Um,
I
just
mean,
putting it out there.
we could add that in general, like having the different members abstain and no DAO board at all. That's totally valid, right?
That works for me. That works for me. And I really, what I would hope that the candidates do, anybody thinking about running for the DAO board, is really, let's put the DAO board in a position to make massive changes and positive ones. Because today it kind of acts like a bureaucracy layer versus a growth layer. And I think that, we have amazing people in the DAO board. The moment we have a focus, we unlock their potential. That's not saying that you guys haven't done fantastic things. It's that I think there can be just so much more we can all accomplish together. So I'm very excited. I'm looking forward to it. I also want to ask if somebody wants to put forward a proposal around assets in the Grape Evil wallet. I would like us to start moving those around or having an official vote, keeping me, Billy, and Chris as the custodians of that asset. I think that that's something we can attack a bit easier than some of these other compensation discussions. So I think that that's one to think about. It was perplexing where some people were saying, "Oh, this is an exit scam," and yet at the same time we're holding the assets that they've purchased for the for the syndicate. It's like I don't trust Dean, but at the same time I trust Dean to hold on to these. I want to help some people with their cognitive dissonance. So I think that that's important to talk about the assets in that wallet. I think there should be some official vote of some sort around our Twitter. I think that would be fun. That way we definitively know who's running the Twitter. And, that starts to create a framework where we start thinking, okay, what should the Grape compensation be? What should the expectations be if someone's running the Twitter? We can also put up the Discord one for a vote. And I think like those things that I had laid out, those are our low hanging fruit that we should attack first before some of this other stuff. And I think it really just helps us understand and develop a framework for establishing the other ones. Any comments on that for us to start voting on? Who has the Twitter rights, who has the Discord rights, and what to do with the assets in the hot wallet?
No objections there.
Yeah, I would like to discuss that a little more in depth as well as the security of the assets is something like we discussed I think one time. I never really revisited.
Yeah, what I like about these discussion topics is they're not controversial enough, and in what we could do as a DAO is be disciplined and say, look, these conversations that seem to be attractive, and the most attractive ones are compensation ones. I can see that so far. Compensation ones and things around product that no one in this group can talk about. So those two things seem to be magnetic. Whereas things like who runs the Discord or who runs the Twitter, even though they are across crypto groundbreaking, you can bet your bottom dollar no protocol would ever ask their community, hey, who's going to run the Twitter in the Discord? For me, those are, even though they might seem anecdotal, those are extremely important discussions. They're discussions that can be held amongst all of us intelligently. So I would almost posit it would be a good exercise to say we will have no further conversation around compensation until we resolve, the Twitter one, for example, just to put people in a place of framing to make sure this gets resolved, because the compensation one will get resolved. That inevitably will get resolved because either people stop working or not, right? Like, that's an easy one. The Twitter thing is one of those things that people can easily kick down the road, even though it's one of the ones where everybody can participate in on the conversation. Like, because it's such a new and novel thing, I don't think anyone has cemented their thoughts on it. And I, for one, would love to hear more conversation around it so I can develop my own opinion on it, because I don't have an opinion on it. It might be a little too radical to say, hey, let's really make sure the DAO board resolves this before going deeper into compensation. But I'm coming also from a place where I know how long it's going to be to handle KYC and some other things to make sure we can do compensation. So, I'm being
How long does
realistic.
that usually take?
I mean,
Just ballpark.
DAO KYC, it's never happened. We're the first people on planet Earth to look into this. Like, we're so ahead of the curve on looking into this stuff that we are also considering, how do we make this a product? How do we make this another great product, another great back token running KYC for DAOs? You know, but I'm talking to Civic on Monday. If as much as possible, I try to push people into conversations on Discord. If somebody wants to, God's Love DAO brought this up, where it's like, hey, who's having that conversation, Grape Labs or Grape DAO? I try to, as much as possible, have every conversation be on behalf of Grape DAO. If they need somebody to sign a contract, usually it has to happen then from Grape Labs. You guys are grown-ups. You understand that, certain things are the way the regulations are. It's not like I'm, there's a dastardly plot to sign from one and not from the other. So with that being said, if whenever I can, I will put people to come and discuss with us. If they're not comfortable, what do you guys want me to do? Do you want me to not have the conversations around how to move forward with our KYC compliance? Like, obviously, I would think you guys want us to continue to have these conversations. And what am I supposed to do now? Put a bounty? Oh, I need 5,000 grape to get on the call. Like, to a certain extent, we're going to continue just doing what needs to be done for grape. But if you guys want, feel free, put forward a vote and say, we don't want any of the grape guys getting on any calls. That would be great. Saves me a lot of fucking time. So, maybe I forgot to put this in the article and I need to update it. But if you guys think that, it's incorrect, I'll stop getting those calls.
Well, you have my trust that you will always do what's best for Grape, and anything to delay that, I don't think is in the best interest. You barely proven yourself to me last week, but if anyone else has any issues, Any final comments? We have 4 minutes left on this DAO call. Not that we need to end it there, but it would be nice, I think.
I would want, first of all, for everybody to celebrate where we are today. You go across all of the Twitters of all of the, big DAO players in our space. Grape is mentioned. Grape is at the center of the DAO experience on Solana. If you guys also noticed, if you've signed up to Solana's official newsletter, the entire article is about us. Solana's official newsletter is entirely about Grape. And if you saw, Sebastian at Realms, he tweeted about how you can keep track of DAOs. He uses Grape as his example. I don't know if I shared the photo where they're on stage showing Grape. Grape is the poster child for DAOs on Solana, and it is my personal goal that we are the example for DAOs across crypto. By the end of this year, I would bet this with anybody. We will be the DAO example that every single conversation, anywhere from CNN to Fortune to Newsweek to Bitcoin maximalists, everybody talking about DAOs, they will use Grape as their example. I am 100% sure about that, just by virtue of the kind of things we talk about and discuss. Like this thing happening with Solend is hilarious. There's all these people that have never had to think about decentralization ever. Like they're all up in arms at the fact that Solend has decided to ask this question of their DAO. They don't realize that by virtue of them asking this question, they're at least somewhat decentralized. Like the best thing they could have done is just pulled the trigger and not ask anyone if they really just wanted to do that. I'm not taking anybody's side on the Solend thing. I have not looked into it at all. I have no idea if they have a fair distribution, but we should be very proud of where we are and where we continue to go. I am, super proud of what we've done with the marketplace and also with Dean's List. And, Pont has shared a newsletter. So, this is an example where the sub DAOs have created their own content. There's a lot of stuff we can do over there. So that being said, what I think would be a healthy thing to talk about either this today or next time is some of those issues I brought up, like the Twitter. It's lighthearted, it can be fun, and it's a genuine exploration versus, sometimes, some conclusions have been reached and then we're teaching people. Other times it is a true, pure exploration. And for me, that's why it's exciting to talk about. I don't know if you guys want to do it today or Tuesday, but I would really love to start talking about who runs the Twitter, how we vote them, what are their responsibilities, what's their comp, I think that would be really fun. On the reputation side, we're having a big talk on Monday. I think that's going to be moving forward, and that's going to be moving forward whatever happens. Like that is a necessity. Like I have as a personal goal that reputation needs to move forward. I hope we can implement it on the Grape DAO. If we don't implement it on the Grape DAO, I'm very hopeful that we'll be able to implement it on Dean's List or GAN. What's great is we have so many places that we can experiment without obstacles anymore, right? There can be some places where there's obstacles, others where there's not. Some DAOs that are for it and some DAOs that are against it. So yeah, to sum up, guys, we are at the top of our game. Everywhere Grape is mentioned, and I remember we had a conversation last or a week or 2 weeks ago about some other tools and whatnot. They are nowhere to be seen. They're nowhere to be seen. And we've recently had on the GAN side, we had a talk with one of the biggest possible names asking for verification, which just continues to cement in my mind how we're seen, that we're not the fumble butts guys. We know exactly who's great for fumble butts. We're not those guys, as I said. Marinate, Pith, Orca, they didn't come to us because we're the fumble butts guys. So extremely proud of where we are with all of our products. Fumble butts. Copyright pending. So yeah, extremely proud of where we are. And You know, if you guys still are in question about that, I think there's enough evidence and information around our DAO that you guys can ask. Like, really, everybody on this call should know beyond a shadow of a doubt that Grape is number one in the DAO space in Solana by virtue of all of the facts that you could see. And if you do not believe that, please ask your fellow Grapers, hey, why is Dean so sure that we're more important in the DAO space than Matrica, than Soluminati, than Tribeca? Ask those questions. If you do not wholeheartedly understand how Grape is ahead of those three, and throw in anybody else other than Realms, right? Realms is who we build with and on. You know, we build with and on Strata. We build with and on squads. But if there's any other tool you think that we might be quote unquote behind or lagging on, bring it up, share it. I can guarantee you your fellow Grapers can show you how you're wrong on that. We're at the peak of our game, guys, and it's only gonna get better once the bull market really kicks in too. I think we're gonna see more members, more membership. But look at this: every single member I know, you know, and you know, Porter, it's crazy. For so long, you've been Ivo, like the Evo Ivo, like, you know, you on Twitter, man. You're nonstop. I love it. But every single person here in the audience, I know, you know, we talk all the time. And look how many people we have on the stage. This is just getting. At what point we're all going to be on the stage? Like, it's that level of decentralization. So very proud, very excited, very happy where we are, and very hopeful that next time we can talk about Twitter ownership.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to talking about the Twitter guy who's been running it and what their thoughts have been. Also looking forward to the SBT or the NTT, and implementing that. I hope we can implement that into Grape, especially for DAO assets and community protection. I hope it's something we can implement as well into the DAO board, coming up with some system for those elections using the attestations. That's something I'm going to be working on with God's Love as well. Just kind of trying to define it, who gets it, what will be in it, what qualifications, disqualifications perhaps. I think that'll be fun. Last thing I wanted to talk about, from the DAO board, I guess I wanted to ask each one of you guys, if we were to proceed with the DAO board, what lens would you prefer? Or do you even feel that there's a need for a DAO board? We discussed two. One was coordination and membership. There's communication in both of those, but do you feel that's something that would be fair?
Yeah, a mix of both, really. I like the
Yeah.
idea that God's Love had, like, to find intersections where those lenses
Yeah, of
really
course.
touch, and then we focus on that, because I agree with what you said. The scope is too big, and yeah, it's also about managing expectations. So a lot of the time I felt as if the members of the DAO looked to the DAO board and thought, yeah, those guys will handle that, and we don't really had a clue on how to do it. So I want to avoid that.
Dim, Taki?
Honestly, I'm still thinking about it. I
Yeah.
haven't concluded on what's the best path forward. I think a DAO board is good to have if we can establish something clear
Yeah.
on what we're targeting and what we should be providing, then that's that. If the DAO board is just focused on this and is not providing general strategic direction, I think that can also work, given that we haven't really provided overall strategic direction in the past 3 months. We have two specific areas, but yeah, let's talk about it. Let's do a call as five. I've sent a message to the Double chat as well, and just tackle this and see how we can move ahead.
Lucky.
Yeah, basically, for me as well, the membership lens and the membership focus for the DAO board's decisions and actions and strategies will be something that will help distill what we're trying to do and what we're trying to achieve. And I think this has been lacking in both the past iterations, the previous and this iteration of the DAO board. So yeah, let's discuss this among us, and I'm confident that we can find a way to work under that direction, which will mean in my book that the DAO board, yeah, it's something that we need in our Grape DAO.
Yeah, and we had briefly talked about the benchmarks that we can use to measure like recruitment, retention, growth, Discord activity, realm deposits, just to name a few. At least something to build off. But yeah, I guess we'll solidify that in our conversation to decide whether we want to um, extend this DAO board for another epoch while we develop the structure to vote on a DAO board. Are there any?
The
Go
only
ahead.
thing is, if you extended, I would think it's only for these four. I don't think you need to extend it to Archimedes, and you should probably remove him from the multisigs. It's only a security risk by having someone on a multisig if they're not going to participate in the multisig. This is also somebody who I know since 8 years old. Okay, so I'm not making these, you know, I'm not making these out of emotion. I'm making these out of objectiveness. If somebody's not active on a multisig, there is zero reason for them to be part of that multisig. This is this should be one of those rules that you can put on stone. If somebody is not active on the multisig, there is really no reason to have that security hole.
Okay, by next Tuesday, I think we'll have those next steps, or at least implemented by Tuesday, I think, or whenever if anyone's free. But I think we'll have a discussion.
Let's
Are
plan
there
for
any other?
a discussion tomorrow. Let's coordinate after the call here and schedule a discussion, a call for tomorrow.
Okay. Are there any other comments? Before we close this DAO call up.
How can I join the Cardano goats?
You know, I actually considered applying for Dean's List. I needed to ask you, would that be something? Would you guys go cross chain and evaluate a project?
100,000%, my man. I would nothing would tickle me more than doing our first cross chain. Yes, yes, and
Yeah,
yes.
I think
But
that would be very valuable.
you have to put a cool like meme of a goat to make up for the verify picture you put in.
I put it up. All right. And to be fair, I didn't know that was going to be. I thought there was just like 5 of us that were
Yeah,
going
it's
to
private. Yeah.
So, and in the thumbnail, it looked bad, but when I show the actual picture, it was a little bit more humorous. I would
But
say.
have Cardano like in bold letters. Like this is for
Yeah.
I want
Yeah.
to tweet the shit out of it. And then we
Yeah.
can tag
Please.
Cardano people. Dude, brilliant. Brilliant. Can you imagine all of a sudden all these Cardano projects come along to Dean's List? I mean, look, we're Solana people. We might suck at reviewing something on Cardano, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah. I think it'd be beneficial for because the Solana versus Cardano mob is always out there, which is I don't understand, but
Yes, yes, and yes.
utilize that.
Yes.
All right. I guess that would end our call. Thanks for joining in. Enjoy your all Sunday and happy Father's Day again.
Take care, everyone. Happy Father's Day.
Bye bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Take care, guys.